20 questions were given to the candidates. They have reviewed the rules. The rules are essentially the same as what we had in the previous forum. We're going to start out with a 30-second introduction. We'll start with Mr. Huffman, come down the line, and this is the order on the ballot, and then we'll rotate each position as we go to the questions. As we get to the question segment, there will be a minute and a half response time. They get a warning at 30 seconds, and then I think we've been giving them a hands up with 5 seconds to go. And he can cut your mic if you don't stop at the end. And we didn't have that problem last time, but I know we won't have that problem this time. So let's get started. We'll go with Mr. Huffman. You've got 30 seconds for a brief introduction.
Good evening. I'm Scott Huffman. I'm running for Congress in North Carolina District 8. I am a Navy veteran, small business owner, a husband, father of 3. My wife is a North Carolina teacher. I have served my community all my life other than when I was in the Navy. I believe in a lot of the values that we all share, and it is an honor to sit here tonight before you and answer these questions. And hopefully that will show the stark difference between the 3 candidates up here. Thank you so much.
I'm Frank McNeill, a lifelong resident of Moore County. Been married for 37 years. We have 3 daughters, 3 grandsons. I'm president of McNeill Propane in Aberdeen. Been active in my community. Currently serving as president of the Aberdeen Lions Club, past district chairman of Boy Scouts. Served 17 years in elective local government, including the mayor of Aberdeen and the Moore County School Board. I look forward now to serving you as your congressman. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Marc Tiegel. I'm running for 8th Congressional District. It's been an exciting couple of weeks here. My story started a long time ago. My grandfather came here from Germany before the war. He started a factory. The same factory that my father learned to weld in, that I learned to weld in, from the same guy. I worked real hard, and I went to school, and I became a firefighter. I worked real hard on the weekends, I became an EMT. I worked real hard, and I became a rescue medic. After that, I became a firefighter, I was a school teacher, and now I'm here. And I'm going to try real hard to earn your vote, and I got the stop signs, I'm going to stop.
All right, we're going to start with the question segment, and we'll go to Mr. McNeill to start. It already sounds louder. A little deeper voice. Thank you. All right. Mr. McNeill, you've got a minute and a half on this question, and each of our candidates for this one. What led you to run for this office? Was there a singular event, or was it anything that led you to this position?
I've always looked for ways to serve my community, whether it's in civic clubs, in local government. Served 2 terms as mayor of Aberdeen, term on the Moore County School Board. I've always enjoyed serving my community. Congress has forgotten that simple value of service. They instead follow the golden rule. Those with the gold make the rules. And when that happens, our voice isn't heard. That's why I'm running for Congress. I want to represent our district in Washington. Sorry about that. We need people that will represent our district. I want to take our values to Washington. Values like kindness, decency, hard work, taking care of each other. Those are our values. That's why I'm running for Congress. I want to be your voice in Washington. Thank you.
So it was a really calculated decision for me. I have a really great life. I'm very lucky, tremendously lucky. And I couldn't sit down. I think one of the reasons you're here is you couldn't sit down either. You could be at home right now, but you know there's a tweet coming. You know something's going to happen tonight. And I had to do something. So I looked at, do I start a nonprofit? Do I start an organization, a foundation? I looked at local, I looked at state. But what I found was that given the resources that I had, given the energy that I had, given the network that I had, the most value I could add was at a congressional level. I sat down with my family, because this affects your family. Everything you do, you're scrutinized. Everything you say is recorded. And it was so amazing that every single one of them, after they grilled me, supported me. And I went away with Karen, my fiance, which is the reason I'm in North Carolina. And we took a weekend, we went off with our pastor and sat down. And we talked and talked and talked. And I wouldn't have been able to be quiet. And what I found is that as we go across this district, and we're going all across it, 1,200, 1,500 miles a week, rooms like this are full of people ready to stand up and raise their voice. It is such an honor to be someone who can be that vessel to hear those voices and take them to Capitol Hill. Thank you.
It's 2 minutes.
Minute and a half.
A minute. A little bit more about me and why I'm running. I'm a son of a single parent. My mom raised 3 children. She worked as a waitress at a truck stop in Salisbury. Worked for tips. She made sure that I got a good public education when you actually got a good public education in our state. When I couldn't afford college, I chose to serve in the United States Navy, and that was a good experience for a young man who needed to have discipline and direction in his life. When I got out, there weren't many veteran services available to help you transition from veteran life back into civilian life. And so I kind of fumbled around, worked odd jobs. Through my own efforts, reading with the fundamentals of a public education, I pursued a career in technology. I started a business on my own ability. I focused on that. I created jobs. I am part of the working class. I am from this area. And the working class in our state is not being represented. How many here are worried and fearful of our government not supporting us? I believe when I'm elected as your next congressman, I will work to make sure our government is fair and good for all. I believe I am the candidate that can beat Richard Hudson in November. Thank you.
Our next question will go to Mr. Tiegel to start this one. What do you consider the biggest issue facing the 8th District in Congress, and what will you do to address that issue?
Jobs, right? Every one of us are worried about whether we're going to have a job next week or next year. If you don't have a job now, I was unemployed for 8 months at one point when I couldn't find a teaching job in North Carolina because they had cut the entire budget. We have got to do a job of bringing jobs here. We have got to figure out a way to entice companies to be here. It's not giving them incentives. It's building the community. It's ensuring that we have an educated pipeline. And community colleges are really our secret weapon in this, right? Because they go into the high schools, and these kids that are coming through these CTE programs are ready for those jobs when they come out, or they're ready to go on those 4-year degrees. We have got to build a community from a regional standpoint where companies want to come here so we don't lose large manufacturers again. Where we're not number 3 on the list and they go, oh, it was really close. We have the capability here. We just need the leadership. We need the network to be able to reach into those companies and show them what we can do. Because this is a great district. It's amazing. We got a national forest in the middle of it. People come here because they love it here. Let's let them live here to have a job where they can raise their family, they can earn a livable wage, and they can enjoy being in the towns that they love.
One of the biggest issues I've heard that face the district are jobs, health care. I've talked to people throughout the district as I've traveled. Their concerns are the rising cost of health care, the lack of jobs. I believe that the minimum wage needs to be raised to $15 an hour. I believe that will stimulate our economy because the working class is the engine of our economy. We see far too many people having to make decisions between health care and food on the table. We see people having to make decisions about how they're going to pay for their car repairs. Just the other day, I had a car repair that I had to deal with. I've driven about 20,000 miles in the district visiting people, and the radiator went out of my car. Just like the district, I believe it can be fixed, just like my car. You need to bring somebody in that's going to be well connected to the community, that listens to the community. And that's what I've been doing as I've been traveling to the district. We need our infrastructure taken care of. We need to focus on the number one thing and taking care of our community, providing jobs. Too many jobs are being shipped overseas. We've seen too many jobs go out the door and wages being stagnated for over 30 years. I did work in a textile company out in Oakboro. We upgraded their internal network to fiber optic systems. And those jobs have left North Carolina. We need to bring them back, and that's what I'll do as your next congressman. Thank you.
Well, I'll add to those two, education. You know, in Washington today, our Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Education, seems to be wanting to systematically dismantle public education in our public schools. I'm a product of the public schools. We all are. I bet just about everyone out here went through public schools. Congress needs to be committed to our public education system. Without it, our students, our children, our grandchildren will not be prepared for the jobs of the future. And so Congress has got to be committed to education and do everything we can to make it the finest schools that we can.
Mr. Huffman, you'll go next on this question. And everyone has kind of mentioned, kind of touched on this, the divide in Washington. Everybody wants it their way. There's a partisan divide. How can you reach across the aisle? How can you work with others? How can you come with common ground that you can get something through Congress?
Look, I believe that the divide is created on purpose because they're doing it to divide us and the working class. Look, let's face it, there are two Americas. There are the rich and everybody else, and we're everybody else. We have to make sure that Congress listens to their people instead of the donor class, instead of super PACs. I have been listening to the people, to the community. One of the things that I'll do as an IT guy, I'm going to create an app so you can reach out to me as your next congressman. You'll have it on your phone. Every registered voter in the district will be able to help me craft my votes based on what they believe the bill should be. So if we have a bill, and I ask the constituents, whether you're Democrat, Independent, or Republican, you will be able to cast a vote if you're a registered voter. And I'll see it on you'll do it off of your phone. No other congressman has that kind of connectivity to their district. And that's what Mr. Hudson has not done. The only time we ever see him in the district is when there's an opportunity for a photo shoot. I will make sure that as your next congressman, I will be accessible. Because everybody has a mobile phone, and there's an app for that. And I will be accessible as your next congressman. Thank you.
I've worked in local government. I've worked with others to get things done. On those boards, sometimes my colleagues and I disagreed, but we were never disagreeable. We knew that sometimes you got to put aside your partisan or political differences in order to do your job and serve your community. Congress isn't doing this. They seem to rather fuss with each other than just to roll up their sleeves and work. I've got a track record of working with others. I will reach out, find those in Congress who are willing to work together. And we will form coalitions and do the things that are needed to be done for our citizens, rather than grandstanding up there. Thank you.
We were in Star, North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, geographic middle of North Carolina. And it was a nonpartisan room, so there were a whole lot of Republicans there, and about two of us Democrats. And there were stump speeches, and every time they would say something, we'd go, no. Every time we'd say something, they'd be like, no. And one of the guys stood up and he said, I'm the ultra-conservative candidate. And I was like, oh, we are not going to agree. And it was, nothing that he said I agreed with, and nothing that I said he agreed with. And at the end of the night, we just happened to be standing next to each other. And it was the weekend of the kids protesting for gun safety. And so I asked him, I said, hey, what'd you think of the kids? And he goes, you know, they're just like the Nazi youth. They're being used. And I was shocked. And I'm a man of words, and I didn't have any words. And I said, you know, it seems like they have a reasonable request. Like, I mean, start with background checks. He goes, oh yeah, that's just fine. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, background checks with red flags, you know, so we can make sure people who are harming themselves don't get a gun. Oh yeah, I'm with you. Ooh, at a national level, so you can't jump county to county? Oh yeah, I'm with you. Like, what's going on, man? How are we agreeing on this? We are completely opposites. He told me the story. His cousin was shot by her husband. It had hit him personally. I was a firefighter medic. I've been on the scene. Murder-suicides and drive-bys. We'll find that common thread. And we have to do that when we get to the hills. Find that common thread.
We'll start with Mr. McNeill on the next question. There's a great wealth gap, a great income inequality in the U.S. right now, particularly in our 8th district. How do you think that can be addressed? What kind of things would you propose?
We've got to have better jobs for the citizens. And to do that, we've kind of got to do like the farmer does. He plants his seed. He fertilizes. He cultivates it. And then at the end of the season, he harvests his crops. Well, we've got to plant the seeds by improving our public education. We've got to make sure infrastructure's in place. Water and sewer. We've got to have high-speed internet. Got to make sure we have power available. Possibly natural gas lines. If we sow the seeds and develop our communities to where we have the infrastructure and we have the educated workforce, then we'll be able to attract industry and to provide the jobs.
Yeah, Frank and I are in vehement agreement on this one. Education is the key. Investing in our communities is the key. You go to Hope County, they don't have internet. It's really hard to start a business. It's really hard to run a business if you have no cell signal, if you have no gas, right? People are bringing in propane, which, sorry, it's a good business, but that wasn't big, I'm sorry. But the lines stop at the county line. We have ways to do it. The USDA grants that are coming in, we're building high schools using USDA grants, so it frees up money to pay teachers, to have resources. There are ways that we can work within the system that we have right now without having to pass any new laws or any new bills. It's just leadership. We can bridge that gap because there are those who have nothing. We were talking to a lady last night, and it was brutal. She couldn't pay her medical bills. And she was crying. I mean, it is brutal. And we've got to do a better job. We've got to make sure we have that affordable health care. We've got to make sure that we're taking care of our teachers so they can give our kids a fighting chance. We've got to have clean water. We have people in Fayetteville who have been on bottled water for 3 years because of Gen X. These are infrastructure problems that simply need leadership. And we need to provide that leadership so we can bring jobs, education, and infrastructure to ensure that everybody has a chance at the American dream that I got to live.
You know, I got lost in those explanations. Could you repeat the question, please?
It'll take me a second. We've got great wealth, a great wealth disparity in our district. Income inequality. What can you do to try to help those on the lower end, push them back up toward the middle?
Well, like I said, we live in two Americas, the rich and everybody else. Our laws have been, and taxes have been adjusted to make sure that the burden is being placed on the middle class and the working class. I think we have to focus on raising the wage of minimum wage. There's been a lot of talk about getting it up to $15 an hour. I believe that would be a good idea because then those all create a domino effect. Minimum wage increases. We then have better ability to afford livable homes. The people can live in their homes, affordable housing, excuse me. We've seen in Washington an attack on jobs. For example, we've had a tariff placed on solar panels in North Carolina. That has produced 34 or 37,000 jobs since 2007. and a 30% tariff shut down development of upcoming solar panels, new technology. Those are sustainable jobs. We have to invest in the future. Investing in old technology, doing the same way is not going to help. New technology is here. I'm an IT guy. I see the advantages of investing in technology because I built a business off of it. I hired people, and I did it without tax breaks. I did it with growing a business and connecting with the community. How many people remember dial-up internet? I started a company 23 years ago that provided that service in this area in several counties. So focusing on the future and new technologies will bring our jobs back. Thank you.
Mr. Tiegel, if you'll start this question. And you guys have touched on a lot of the questions we have, so if we repeat some of this or you go back over, just use this as a chance to kind of fine-tune your answers if you choose to. What is your thoughts and priorities on infrastructure in our country?
So one of the stories that I don't really tell is that I tried to start a business. It was a sewer overflow sensor business, right? It was fascinating because I could find out where the next sewer overflow was going to be, so it didn't flood your house full of sewage. And what I found was that there is a sewer overflow every single day in every single city because the sewer and water infrastructure is over 100 years old. It's the same with the bridges. It's the same with the roads. We have to do a better job of taking care of our country and investing in our country. We're in this cycle of, every next election we're going to do this. Our job as a government is to ensure the long-term sustainability of our country so that our children and our grandchildren can live the dreams that we have. So my priority is to raise that up. It may take $1 billion or $1 trillion. It's more than $1 trillion. But it has to be done. Because if we don't take care of our country, if we don't take care of the people in our country, we don't give them access to the opportunity in our country, we're toast. Slowly, 1,000 cuts, we whimper and die. We have got to stand up and raise our voice and invest in our country.
Oh, I'm next. Well, for me, if we're going to invest in our infrastructure, we need to invest in our healthcare system because a healthy person is a healthy worker. We cannot continue we cannot continue to ignore people's health. They're struggling to pay for health care. We're seeing higher costs, deductibles. I personally, my family, we're dealing with higher costs of deductibles, $1,400 per child. There's 5 in my family. So if we focus on making sure our health care is taken care of and addressing those issues, possibly Medicaid for all, working towards those type of programs that will make sure everybody's healthy, then we can focus on our infrastructure. And our infrastructure clearly is our roads. If you don't have a road to connect your communities together, then you can't exchange and sell goods between each community. That's how we connect to our neighbors in our rural areas. Focusing on our farmers. We see too many farmers dealing with the issue of growing crops in our state. I read an article the other day where farmers are committing suicide because they cannot get enough help to get their crops out to the market and to have the money they need to have the infrastructure and equipment to grow the crops. So there's a lot to do, and I will listen to everybody in our district to make sure we bring resources from Washington back to the district. Something Mr. Hudson has not done for our district. Thank you.
We do have infrastructure needs. Many of us ride over roads that are cracking and bumpy. Numerous bridges throughout the country have been designated for replacement, but yet the money's not there to do it. Water and sewer plants. Many cities are really strained to handle the volume of water and sewer, and also the lines are failing and leaking. So those are old infrastructures that need repair. I mentioned internet. High-speed internet is an infrastructure. It's not so much decaying, but it needs to be installed and extended to all the areas, particularly the rural areas. The great thing about repairing our infrastructure is it creates a lot of jobs. Y'all may remember the president said he was going to have a $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill. Well, no bill yet. Of course, he gave the money away, so don't have it to spend on infrastructure. But there's plenty to invest in, and it would help the economy immensely by creating jobs as well.
Right, Mr. Huffman, you'll start the next question, and you've answered this question a little bit. Let's expound on it a little bit. What's your opinion on the changes in the tax code? What needs to be done to fix it, and where are you going to get the money, I guess, to do these infrastructure projects?
Well, let's face it, the tax system is not in favor of the middle class. It hasn't been in a long time. And if these tax breaks were so wonderful, why didn't they make them permanent for the working class? They did not. Our taxes will increase in 5 years when the tax breaks expire. They'll continue for the rest. Imagine a party happening right now. We're celebrating along with the 1%. In 5 years, the 1% continue to celebrate because they will have tax breaks. We need to readjust the tax system. We need to work with economists. I'm no expert on tax law, but I will work with people that will help me navigate and improve the tax system so it's a fair tax system, not skewed to benefit those with the most. I can tell you as a small business owner, when they brought out this new tax plan, I lost my home office deduction. I had a tax increase, and it was placed on the working class. So this is wrong. It's not fair, and as your next congressman, I will work to make sure our tax system is fair for the working class who carry the burden of this nation. We are the working class who are the dynamic economic engine of our country. So we got a lot of work to do, and there's been a lot of damage done over the years, and the working class has been ignored. And as your next congressman, I'll do my best to make sure we have a fair tax code. Thank you so much.
The main thing about taxes, everyone should pay their fair share. We should all pay our fair share. This recent tax cut didn't do that. Every bracket received a decrease. We'll find out next year whether we actually pay more or less because of the changes in deductions. But the great beneficiary was huge corporations and the very richest in our country. We talk about fairness, they didn't need the cut, and yet they got it. Their cuts are permanent, our cuts aren't. It was not a good plan.
It's all a matter of prioritization, right? I did not need a tax cut last year, and I don't think Frank did either. That tax cut should have gone to people who are school teachers, who are investing in their community, because we know that trickle-down economics doesn't work. What we do know is that when you don't have to worry about how much your taxes are going to be taken out of your paycheck, you can focus on educating children, or you can focus on keeping our streets safe because you're a police officer, that's a good investment. We need to prioritize. There's plenty of money. Plenty of money. Corporations didn't need an incentive to spend money. They had trillions of dollars in free cash. They didn't need more of that. That's not going to create jobs. That money should have been spent on infrastructure, should have been spent on education, should have been spent on investing in the country and the communities that are the engines that drive this country. It was a horrible, horrible idea. And now we're going to be further and further in debt, and that's going to hit my son, my 21-year-old son, who's going to go out into the workforce, and he's going to have to pay higher taxes because there is so much debt. And now we have no way to re-engage our economy when we hit a slowdown. It was a poor, poor choice, and we need to reverse it.
We'll start the next question with Mr. McNeill. To do the things you want to do in Congress, you got to beat Richard Hudson. What's Richard Hudson's greatest failings, and what can you do better than Richard Hudson?
We're going to need a lot more than a minute and a half. Each of us have worked in private business. I run a small company. I know what it is to create jobs, to take care of my customers. Mr. Hudson has never done that. His entire career has been in Washington. And so that gives him a different perspective. He's looking at things like Washington does. That's not the way we look at it. And so I think the fact that he never really has been a part of this district. He's never created jobs in this district. He's never spent the time growing up and being a part of our communities. And so that affects his, the way he looks at things. So I would think that our president said, Washington is a swamp needs draining. Well, Richard has lived in the swamp all his life.
Yeah, he really missed a huge opportunity, right? He swoops in, he takes a picture of a couple of soldiers because we've got Fort Bragg, and then he swoops out. He's got a house that I don't think he's been in for a long, long time. He and his wife are well ingrained in D.C. I think she is the chief of staff for Kellyanne Conway, and their kids are in daycare in D.C. It's too bad. Such a great district. We could have done so many things in the last couple of cycles. We could have positioned ourselves at the forefront. We're between Charlotte and Raleigh. We have these two huge hubs. You bring those in. We got Fort Bragg. You transition your soldiers with those skill sets. Imagine the innovation engine that is. There are so many of these pockets of amazingness in this district, and he just didn't do it. I think any one of us is going to be so invested in this community, so invested in this district that we aren't going to have a choice but to be the evangelists, to stand up, to scream and yell about all the wonderful things that could happen here, and to reach out and bring in those companies, bring in those educators, bring in those great minds that say this is a great place to live. Join us in the 8th District. Move here, be one of us, because it's beautiful here.
You know, I reflect back to when Mr. Hudson had before him a vote to repeal net neutrality. And I thought, as an internet service provider who has provided internet access in the community for 23 years, and I understand that there's such a gap of broadband internet in the communities. I'll never forget, I reached out to his office and I asked him to vote to support net neutrality, to give the FCC the power it needed to regulate the costs that we have with broadband. And I reached his office, the constituent services there. They wouldn't set up a meeting, or they said his schedule was full, basically. So I posted on his Facebook page, and I gave him point-by-point reasons of how broadband would create jobs in our community. And I got a huge amount of likes. But what did he do? He deleted it. He took it off his Facebook page. That man has not had a single town hall event since he's been our congressman. As a candidate, I've had more town halls than he has. He comes into our community for photo opportunities. I come into the community because I want to represent the working class folks who are here that are struggling to make ends meet and provide for their families. Mr. Hudson lives in a bubble. He doesn't care about us because before he became our congressman, the man was a lobbyist. He represents the donor class. I represent the working class. Thank you.
Next question. I believe you're up on this.
All right.
Okay, this looks like this will be our last question.
Okay.
Why are you the best candidate to beat Richard Hudson?
Yeah, it's like we're all competing to take you to prom, right? We all got the same car and the same job. Integrity, right? If I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose in integrity. I'm not going to compromise who I am or put out things that aren't accurate or true. I wouldn't be here unless I wanted to fight, because it's going to be a fight. It's going to take energy. It's going to take enthusiasm. It's going to take, somehow, we have to connect all of these different aspects of our district. And we got to drive, and we got to be there. We got to meet people. We got to know people. I might not be your best option, but it's up to you to choose. You should research every single aspect of every single one of us because we are the vessel that carries your voice to the hill. Make an informed decision. Challenge us, question us, corner us, shake us. Do whatever it takes to ensure that you have absolute and complete trust in us so that we can ask you the hard questions when it comes time. So we can come to you and say, this is the tough decision and I need your support. Because we can't do this alone. We need every single person to vote.
Weren't you next? Oh, it's me? Okay. How can I beat Mr. Hudson? Well, because I live here in the district he does not. How can I beat Mr. Hudson? Because I'm a Navy veteran. I understand the discipline and the vigor it's going to take to represent the working class. How can I beat Mr. Hudson? Because I represent the working class. I am the working class. I grew up in a small town. I'm connected to this community. I understand this community. I've traveled throughout this community. I have visited people. I've had people cry in my arms because they're struggling to make ends meet. Mr. Hudson doesn't want to meet with any of y'all. He doesn't care about any of y'all. I do, because I'm going to represent the people of this district. When I started this campaign, I said that I was going to make sure I reached out to everybody and listened to their concerns. And one of the things I did was learn about how you're funded in your campaign. The average donor in my campaign is $31. I haven't accepted any money from super PACs like some of our opponents have. And I will not, because I will be beholden to the voters. This is your seat. It belongs to the voters. It doesn't belong to the donor class. It doesn't belong to super PACs. It belongs to the people. And I will represent the people of this district, because it's the people that are hurting. Not the donor class, not the super PACs. They're throwing money in this to control your congressman. They will not control me. The people will. And that's what I'm here to do, to serve the people. Thank you.
Obviously, I think any of us three would be a vast improvement on what we have now. I think some of my strong points are my experience. I've run a small business. I've grown it. I've created jobs in my community. I've served my neighbors, taken care of them. I've got experience in government, been active in local government. I know how to work with other people to get things done. That's going to be critically important in Congress. The main reason is I care about you. I've always cared about my neighbors. I've always loved working with my neighbors to get things done in my community. Now I want to expand my community to include all of the 8th District. I can be a very effective congressman. I can work with the other congressmen to get things accomplished. Thank you.
That's all of the questions we have. Now we're going to go to a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. I think we started with Mr. Huffman to begin with. Let's go to the other end. We'll start with Mr. Tiegel and go down the line that way. But there's 2 minutes under closing statement.
Thank you for being here tonight. A year ago, 2 years ago, I don't think we have a full room. But this year is different. Everywhere we go, we're packing the houses. Moore County the other night, it was crazy. There is so much energy. There is so much respect for what could happen next in this democracy. There is so much that we can do. And it comes down to you. You need to go grab 10 people and take them and make them vote tomorrow. You need to inform them. You need to guide them. Because we're just the figureheads. We're just the happy faces up here doing our best job to convince you that it's worth fighting for democracy. It's worth fighting for this country. It's worth fighting for this community. It's worth fighting for your neighbor. It's worth standing up and raising your voice. This is our chance. The kids are in the streets. The teachers are in the streets. The park rangers are all over Facebook. I mean, it is an amazing, amazing time to be alive. It is a pivot point in this country, and it is up to you to seize that opportunity. Give us that opportunity to stand up for you. Give us a chance to advocate for you, because there's so much that we can do. My name is Marc Tiegel, and I'm running for Congress.
Thank you for each of you being here tonight to take time to learn a little more about us. We've got to change Congress. The only way to do that is to change the faces in Congress. There's one I've got in particular in mind that probably ought to be changed. We need a congressman that understands and will stand up for our communities. We need a congressman that cares more about getting things done than getting a name in the paper. We need a congressman that will provide leadership on important issues. If elected, I will fight to bring down the cost of health care. Prescription drug costs are hurting our families, and a parent shouldn't have to decide can they afford food or medicine for their children. I'm committed to our public schools and our teachers to make sure that our students receive top quality education so that they will be prepared for the jobs of the future. I'm committed to our veterans to make sure they receive the care and the services they need. They deserve it, and they certainly have earned it. Bottom line is, we've got to change Congress. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support. I very much want to serve you as our congressman in Washington. Thank you.
Wow, I cannot tell you how thankful that I am to see so many people here tonight engaged in this democratic process, because you own this democratic process. Not people with large bank accounts, not the donor class. The people own this seat in North Carolina. Mr. Hudson has not yet visited any of y'all. Raise your hand if you've met Mr. Hudson in a forum where he has taken your questions and listened to your concerns. I don't believe he has. One of the things that concerned me and what motivated me to run for office was my daughter. It was right after the election. She was concerned about what was happening in our country. She was worried about her friends in school. She was worried about the racism, the hate, the bigotry that they were going to face. And I told her as a father, don't worry, it's going to be okay. I could have not been more wrong. Look at the direction our country is going. We've seen a war. We've seen deportation of good people. We've seen our communities broken up and divided. We've seen our African American community kicked to the curb, and we do not have the representation for our people. I will do my best as your next congressman. I know that I can beat Mr. Hudson because I am going to listen to the people, represent the people, because I'm only here to work and be the conduit for you. As a Navy veteran, I'm appalled about how our veterans are being treated. My wife, as a North Carolina teacher, has had to deal with the struggles of being a teacher and dealing with special needs, and I've seen what is happening in our schools. I've traveled through and seen how some of our schools have not had heat because of the cold weather changes. So I will work as your next congressman to do the very important thing. Bring as many resources from Washington and invest them in this district. Mr. Hudson's not doing that. He's more worried about making sure you can take a gun across state lines. I will make sure the people are represented. I am the only candidate that can beat Richard Hudson. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up. We want to thank you for being here and for sharing your ideas and thoughts. And everyone give them a big round.
And I want to thank Marc Plemmons for agreeing to do it. He might even have been enthusiastic. It's the fastest I've ever got a phone call back from him. And I want to thank Ken for keeping everybody on track. Like I said, he is the extraordinary timekeeper. Appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. There are campaign materials in the back. Talk to the candidates before you leave. Get their contact information so you can reach out and speak to them. If you didn't get questions tonight, if you want to send questions to all the candidates, I'll help facilitate that. So thank you all for coming tonight, and everybody go vote tomorrow. And if you don't vote tomorrow, make sure you vote between now and the 8th. To vote. And drag your neighbors, drag your friends, because, see, Diamond left, I was going to put her on the spot. We have been told that Democrats can't win. I remember being up in Raleigh talking to Rufus Edmonston, and there was a appeals judge there, and he said, "Oh, you're the chair of the Cabarrus County Democrats. Well, that must be a lonely job." You know what? It wasn't lonely at all when I was standing in the back of the room watching the Republican Party go, how the hell did they get a black female Democrat elected in Harrisburg? So, as you all know, to quote Lanny, who was standing in the front of that room, what the hell's going on? We own Harrisburg. No, you don't. And you don't own Cabarrus, and you don't own District 8. Right. The numbers are on our side. The wind is at our back. Get your neighbors out. Get them to vote. We need 250 people to knock doors and make phone calls. Come sign up and volunteer. Drag your friends. We got cookies and snacks, too. But come ride the wave, because this is how we get people elected. And we're going to do it this year. And I thank all of you for coming out tonight.